was going to say yes, he is coming. Good evening, everybody. Glad to see such a good turnout this evening. We really don't like to have the B.O.N.D meetings. It's the Bernie open neighborhood discussions. Thank you. Somebody else out there knows it better than I do. In the council chambers because it seems so formal. I'm used to presenting in the chambers to the Planning and Zoning Commission and council. So we're yes, sir.
Can you use the microphone, please?
I'm trying to use it. Can you hear me better? Oh, there we go. I can hear me now. All right. Anyway, we don't like to do the B.O.N.D meetings inside the formal chambers, but we thought we might have a big crowd tonight, and I didn't want anybody having to stand in the corners in the training room and so forth. I'm Laura Haining. I'm the planning director for the city of Boerne. We've got Sarah Seha-Bennett with me. She's one of the planners that's been working closely on this project. We've got Jeremy Williams here is with Embry, and he'll be presenting the project for y'all. And Ashley Fairmond is the representing attorney in case there's any legal questions. But I did want to I want to start off with kind of the rules. This is an informal meeting. There are no decisions being made tonight. It's a conversation back and forth between y'all and the developer to see if what you can, make suggestions on the project, talk about your concerns. He'll provide his feedback. But I'll start with just some background, and then I'll ask Jeremy to come up and give a presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions. Rather, though, because we are recording this meeting, rather than hollering from the audience, if you'll just kind of raise your hand and then come up to the microphone, ask your question, have the conversation. Like I said, it's not as formal as P&Z. It's not as formal as council. So we're pretty casual here. I just ask that everybody be respectful. It's Boerne, Texas. I know you all are. So I expect some good feedback tonight. We've been working with Jeremy, with Embry for a little while, actually working through this development. And so just to give you all a little bit of history, I've been with the city in the planning department for 17 years. And as part of the planning department, I've been through 2 comprehensive plans for the city in which we plan for growth. I know it's a dirty word to everybody. It feels like a dirty word. It has been since I've been here, I promise you. Nobody wants continued growth, but we still are impacted by, the push from San Antonio. We've got people coming from out of state into the area, and it's a beautiful area. Our schools attract a lot of people. Our trail systems, our downtown, it's attractive to a lot of people. Costs are higher here, so when I talk about affordable housing, you have to understand it's not affordable in relationship to other areas, even to San Antonio. We're still an expensive community to develop in. I think what Jeremy's trying to do here is a product that I am beginning to see a whole lot of interest in from other developers. I've actually looked at 4 projects fairly similar. Some are ownership, some are rentals, but they're townhome look, they're a duplex look, but they're more like a cross between a house and an apartment. So I'm going to let him explain his project a little bit, but as far as planning for this side of town in the two comprehensive plans I've been here for, we knew that the growth on this side of town, on the east side of Boerne, was going to be pretty heavy. Since I've been here, I was part of the platting process for Champion Heights, Trails of Herf Ranch, Esperanza. We're still working on Esperanza right now, Ranches at Creekside, all the development on this side of town, and I can promise you each and every one of them was controversial in some way. At some point, I heard from numerous people that we don't want any more people in this town. And so where do you shut the gate? You can't shut the gate. Probably the majority of you would not be here if we shut the gate prior to your subdivision. So you have to keep that in mind when we're talking about development. This particular property is 27 acres. It is one of the few remaining ranches on this end of town that's kind of pigeonholed between residential development. When we looked at with the comprehensive plan, we have future land use plans. I know I'm using some technical terms. I don't want to get too technical. But as part of that, we talk about, and we talk publicly about, what do we anticipate for growth in this area? And in planning for that, we planned some pods of commercial with mix of residential around. We didn't want strip centers. We wanted Bernie to look different and feel different when you drive into town. So this mix of residential kind of fits in that. So when we talked to Jeremy initially, it seemed like a good fit in general based on our future land use plan. So they proceeded to plan accordingly. Commercial still will be in the mix. I think we'll see some commercial in there. There are three other properties over there between Esperanza and Champion Heights that have not yet been developed. And I do anticipate that they will be. So everybody that wants this to remain parkland, it's very, very unlikely that it will be. Champion Heights was a ranch at one time. Esperanza was a huge ranch at one time. Everybody was a ranch at one time. So the houses that you live in right now, you have to understand where you came from. And I knew I was here when they were farmland. So I don't want to make Embry the bad guy here. They came in with a plan and there's a market for it right now. I know there is because I'm seeing more of it. So what they want to present tonight is the plan, see if we can come to some kind of consensus of what might need to be considered for a plan like this to work in that area. It is not typical apartment complexes. These look more like, I'll call them duplexes because they're back to back, but they're like single family homes that just happen to be back to back, but they're not 4 stories tall, they're 2 stories tall. The other thing that they're doing here, it's a little technical, but it's a planned development. A PDD is what we call it. And so that is a guarantee. So they can't get the R4L zoning, which is apartment zoning. It's multifamily. We call it multifamily because there's multiple units on a lot. If these were single buildings, even single homes, and there were multiples on a lot, it would still be multifamily by the city standards. So we don't have a real good determination other than just calling it multifamily. And I think that was scary to everybody. Everybody anticipated apartments, your standard 4-story. Not that those are bad, but that's not what this product is. So what their plan is, the density, our typical apartments probably in Bernie are around 16 units per acre. These are 8 units per acre, so it's half of what we typically see. And by definition, an R4L is 18 units or less. The PDD, as I was explaining earlier, is a guarantee of what they put on the site plan, all the way to building heights, parklands, street layout, all of that are guaranteed. So you don't always get that typically with an R4L zoning without a PDD. I guess nowadays they all require an SUP, so they're locked in to what they're doing. But typically with a PDD, you're going to be guaranteed what you're getting. So the locations of buildings, give me just 1 second, I'm going to wrap it up and then I'll...
Well, no, since you went technical, just for comparison.
Okay, so I have to have you come to the mic. But let me finish up, and then I'll ask you to come up and ask a question. So anyway, I just want you to know we planned for the area. We've got a thoroughfare plan in place. That little backage street that we keep talking about. That's the city's requirement, and how we get those roads, like the road through Champion Heights, is a north-south collector. That will eventually, sometime in the future, when property is developed from here to whatever point, will be a road that will connect to, we had planned for it to connect to Adler at some point. And that will help move traffic. This little backage street will help keep some traffic off of River Road. And that was really for the north side convenience in that area and to kind of help some of the traffic congestion in the area. We also have the road that goes through Esperanza all the way through ranches at Creekside that eventually, once development occurs again, the city's not building it, the development does. Once it makes the connection, it will go all the way through Cascade Caverns Road down to I-10. So these are all on our thoroughfare plan. Maps are all online. You're welcome to go look. I can send them to you, shoot me an email, and I'll get you the information. But all of that is online, and it's all planned out already long before they came along. So I think they're getting blamed for some of the stuff that we've been planning all along, and it's been out there for years. And we put a lot of thought into this area because we anticipated a lot of growth. So street connections, all of that stuff are things that we asked developers to do to benefit the general community as a whole. And I think they get pushback on that sometimes when really it's to help relieve traffic in the area. I think I'm going to close up now because I don't want to hog all of his time. I know you had a question, but if you'll get up to the mic, I'd appreciate it just so we can record it.
Could you just tell me where this is located, where they're planning on?
Hold on one second. I'll answer your question in just 1 second. Yes, sir.
Hi, Brian McGinnis. So you said he's building at 8 families per acre. By comparison, hopefully you know the number, Woods of Bernie, Champion Heights, or what is the average in Esperanza in terms of families per acre?
Well, Champion Heights, I can tell you off the top of my head, is about 6 units per acre. I can go do the math real quick on Trails of Herf Ranch and Woods of Bernie. Woods of Bernie is probably a little less dense, but Champion Heights in comparison is 6 units per acre.
Okay.
So I'm talking about family units per
and
acre.
At least where we're at in phase 1 of Esperanza is
So you're less dense in areas.
we're at 3 to maybe 4 at most.
Right. You're larger lot development. Yes, sir. Not in the city limits, though. You're a WCID, so you're not in the city
Let's
limits.
not go there at this meeting.
Oh, no, I'm just
but
being clear.
But that's going to.
But the density, you're correct. They're less dense.
That will open up a later question when we're in about paying for the water system. So we'll
Sure.
save that for later.
You bet. Did you want to come up and ask your question?
Well, I
Just
wanna know
location?
Where this is located, where they're
Okay.
planning on building them.
Are you? Where are you located? What subdivision are you in? Woods of Bernie. So you've got Woods of Bernie, Champion Heights.
Right.
Across the creek from Champion Heights is where this development is going to go.
So it's not right beside Core, between like Core Gym, the gym workout center, and Champion Heights. It's more than that property there. It's on beyond Champion Heights.
Yes, ma'am. Just on the other side of Champion Heights. So I'm going to ask Jeremy, and that's your cue, to come on up, and I think he's probably got a location map and all that. He can describe the project, and then we'll open up to any questions y'all might have. Again, he's here to answer questions, but I would ask if you just kind of raise your hand and come up to the mic, just so we can record the questions, so that everybody that couldn't make it tonight, they can watch it in your neighbors and so forth, come back and watch the meeting and understand what's going on also, and hear your questions.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Jeremy. It's a pleasure to meet with you guys and speak with you. I like facing this way a lot better than my back to you. So thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. We've got a quick demonstration for anyone that wasn't here at the last P&Z. I can walk through at a high level. I'll speak to some specific points that were brought up. I want to address some of the concerns that was brought up by the community and kind of go through that. Very quickly, Embry, 47-year-old company. We've been around for a long time, and we do what we say we're going to do. She mentioned the PDD earlier, and even without the PDD, we like to meet with people face to face. We like to talk with them, tell them what we plan to do, and we move pretty slowly. I equate it to kind of the Titanic. Where we see a path and it's this direction, we slowly kind of turn and just make sure it's the right thing for us. And so we believe in this community and this product type in this community. The quality of the product is going to be Class A. It's going to be a distinctive living experience than traditional multifamily that's currently in the city of Bernie. We are going to be 1- and 2-story, not just 2-story. We do have some 1-story product. And then we also, with this type of living space, the 12 units, the 8 units to the acre, the 21 acres, 22 acres the full site is 27 acres, but there's some land that we're dedicating on the west side of the property, that there's going to be a lot of green space with this type of design. And so we have units that face green belts, we have units that face the perimeter, the exterior, and then we have open space throughout. I have a few slides as well that show what the amenities would be like as well on the property. So just another slide of the exterior. Here's some stats. This will have all the amenities that a Class A luxury apartment will have. 5,000 square foot clubhouse, swimming pool, dog parks, etc. This is a drainage study. We're continuing to work through the city. The green that you see highlighted on the left-hand side is the detention area, and with equivalent setbacks that are required. Off of the creek, I think it's 150-foot setbacks that we're going to be designing to and holding back from the center line of the creek. We'll be connecting to the City of Boerne water, sewer, and the electric provider here is PEC. One of the things that was brought up last time was dark sky requirements and some concerns about development and light pollution. And know that the specifications on the light fixtures that we'll be providing are full cutoff, dark sky compliant, and LED. So that's the way we design to on all of our projects. Boerne would be no different. These are a few pictures of the poles that are currently around, like outside at the library, Champion Heights Boulevard here. And one thing to point out that with topography that's on our site, it slopes pretty heavily from the northeast to the southwest, of keeping the light levels down low where they're used. So this isn't a 4-story building where we need it light up higher. These are 1- and 2-story. So we'll have pedestrian-friendly lighting that's down lower to the ground. We'll have smaller, shorter pole standards where we need those. And so we'll be very sensitive to light pollution and spillover. There's a few examples of the light fixtures. Pole light on the top left. We're still working through exactly the aesthetics. Bollards, and there's some full cutoff wall packs that we would be using lower to the ground. I'll point out that one of the differences today about apartments, it's not what I was used to in college. That's, what I lived in is not what we build today in terms of these are desired by the institutional asset class. And so the people that invest and own these are institutional buyers, and they are very much about quality and longevity and durability of the product type. These are professionally managed, so this is not a single-family project that would be rented out. So that's an important distinguish. So a builder comes in and builds some small lot line, 1,800 square foot homes. Someone could go purchase those homes and rent those out individually. One of the differences with our community is that we do background checks, we do income verification, we will vet, really, people need to qualify to live in our communities. With a product like that, where you own a home and you're allowing someone to live there, there's really not a way to govern as closely who moves in and who lives there.
Just a little confused. Is this a rental property? Because that's the way it's been explained, short-term leases.
Yes.
Or are you selling? Okay.
Yes, this is a rental community. The difference is, right, this isn't month to month. These are going to be 12 to 15 to 18 month leases.
That's short term.
You said 9 to 12 the last one.
I said that, well, we can do nine month leases as well.
So that's short. That's short, and they're typically 30 to 60 days.
Can you-
Written notice.
So the
That's-
issue with the meeting is that we need to have it recorded, and if you're talking from the back, we can't record your voice. So if somebody else watch online, especially P&Z, they won't be able to hear your questions. So if you guys can come up to the microphone to talk, we really appreciate it. I'm sorry.
I think I can answer his question and speak to the
The
rental.
question was, is this going to be a rental property? Or because the way you were framing that, it sounded like people are going to be able to buy and then sublease.
No.
Okay.
So I want to clarify, there's two distinct differences of what's being placed in the market today. And Laura alluded to the fact that this is a popular thing that's going on. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. Builders, instead of building the homes and selling them, now builders are retaining some of their inventory and renting those out. Okay? Now, someone could purchase the homes and rent them out themselves. What I'm saying is there's no quality control there. You have questions of who maintains that at that point, who's providing the mowing, the painting, the upkeep on that type of, it's called single family for rent kind of community, where they're individually platted homes that could be purchased or sold onesie twosie as you go. So you get this end up with a diverse mix, and it's hard to really control the quality of that development. With us, it is one plat, and it's master planned, and it's professionally managed with staff. We'll have 5 to 6 staff on site every day. And so we do all the maintenance, we do all the upkeep. We make sure that the exterior is, looks the way that it is, and that our residents adhere to our standards. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
This is a drainage study that shows as we're capturing the Esperanza detention pond, it goes from our east around our site and eventually drains to the creek. Our design will be compliant with the city standards to capture and release the runoff in a fashion as its existing standards today. That's what the charge is, and that's what our designers, civil engineers will design to.
I just had a quick question. You say that you're going to manage it. In the October meeting, you had mentioned that you would professionally manage it, maintain the property, like you just said. In the last meeting, you were asked a question if you were going to keep this property or if you guys planned on selling the property, and that was yet to be determined. It sounds like now you've made that choice. Is that correct, or do you still not know?
Yeah, I still can't answer. I don't know if this is going to be a long-term hold for us or if this will be a product where we build and sell.
So that basically what you're stating is not necessarily you're going to be managing it, and you may not have 5 to 6 people on. You may build it and sell it immediately.
We could. That certainly is true. We have a property management group, and we seek to retain all of the properties, even if the properties that we sell. And we have a pretty high strike rate of continuing to maintain and operate those properties.
Yeah, because I think the one major concern is, as somebody mentioned at the last meeting, is you have these under new management continuously. And if they don't share the same level of expectations, all of a sudden rents could drop. It's certainly a nice looking facility, we'll give you that, but that's a very, very major concern among the owners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to that point, if we did sell, and the investors and the buyers that would be looking at this type of investment, as I said again, it's not a mom and pop kind of operation that would turn around and purchase this property. These would be the Fortune 500 company type of investment people that purchase assets like this. And with that, you get that same level of professional management. I can tell you that Embry will do everything that we can if we did sell to continue to maintain the management and keep a close relationship with the neighborhoods. We do community outreach, and we'd be happy to provide phone numbers to be able to reach out to the leasing staff if necessary, if there was ever a complaint. We would not be hard to reach.
So, as a follow-up question on that, I'd like to find out, you just said the magic words, you might sell your investment to another investment company. Then that's what happens when you have a situation like this, in that you bring the first generation probably you'll control of people leasing. But after that, if you sell the property, undesirables start to lease. Because, let's face it, investors are in there for the profit. And if they see they're not making the profit they anticipated, they're going to lower the standards.
I hear what you're saying, and I understand and certainly could say that that's true in some cases. I looked up, someone brought up the crime as a concern and for this type of use. And so go to the Kindle County crime map. Just Google that, and you can pull that up and you can see what complaints have been made and where officers were called out to areas. And it was apparent that I was trying to look for places that crime would potentially be a problem. There's apartments in Bernie, and you can look for yourself. And I didn't see any a single complaint, and I looked back for the last 3 years that was on the website. Now, that's public information. That's what I looked at, and I did see other areas that did have that. But I'm pointing that out. I looked and I researched and I tried to find what concerns there would be from the apartment communities here in Bernie. So I'll say that I can speak to how we manage and how we maintain the property in the community and what it will be like. So to clarify, this is the site that we'd be developing. If there's any questions, it's just to the east of Champions Heights, to the west of the Rittiman tract. There was a concern about proximity to some of the neighbors. And so I was on property this week with some of the commissioners. And we walked and we spent some time there at the back of the property specifically to look at how close the property lines are, how close the buildings are, what the topography looks like. And so I asked our engineers to prepare this slide, and I apologize, it's hard to see, but what this is demonstrating is there's about 150 foot. This is the southernmost. This is 122 El Cielo here, and there's another property that's just to the north, 124, which is slightly further away in a little bit different orientation. But nonetheless, both property lines touch ours, and so I wanted to really investigate that closely. And first thing I saw is that there's about a 30-foot difference between the foundation of the homes and where we would be placing our foundation. So about 3 stories in height of elevation change. And second, there is, if I'll go back a slide to an aerial, there is some vegetation along the property line, which we would intend to keep. It's right at the outflow detention structure, and so we'll have to see what needs to occur there to allow the water to flow. But what I noticed is there was a gap in the trees, kind of right where 122 Cielo's backyard was, and kind of looking onto where this unit would be placed. And so in talking with commissioners, and I felt like this would be a worthy cause, like let's plant and continue with the screening there so that it mimics what's there. It's a similar height and kind of blocks that screen down low, and they can still look out over the top of the landscaping and the trees and see what they've seen over the years. So I think that that's an important thing to do, and we would commit to planting that and kind of filling that gap of about 15, 20 feet of blank space between trees to help with any concerns that the residents that live in those 2 homes would have from views. So I felt like it was great to see the 30-foot grade change and the fact that Esperanza is looking out over the top of the trees. And essentially what this depiction would try to show is a 2-story structure and the rooftops, and then you can imagine the grade change going away from you, that it just continues to go down the hill. So unobstructed views continued west.
What is your
Yes?
planned setback for the building from the property line?
So the question was planned property setback. We have a 10 yard on the side around Esperanza. And I should know that. I apologize.
No, I don't have Sorry,
What's
I think
that?
it's 10. I don't have my UDC right now, but
So there's 2 things. One, we have to get detention around. 2, I think there's a 10-foot building line setback on the side yard. And so this is further than 10 feet. We do have yards, private fenced yards that would be facing that direction. So that would also hold the home further off of the property line, further away from that 10-foot building setback line.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Redeman. I guess my question is more for Laura. On density, y'all were talking about yours is 8 per acre, right? The one subdivision 6 per acre. But what's the average square footage of yours?
About 1,000 square feet.
What's the average square footage of the one you're referring to?
The lot size?
No, the square footage of the actual
structure?
structures.
They're probably closer to 2,000, 2,400 square feet.
And that's in which neighborhood?
Champion Heights.
And that's the one closest to
Yes.
Embry's proposed property.
Esperanza is actually closest. The south tip of Esperanza actually is
Right,
closer.
they back up
Champion
to us.
Heights
Right.
is also on the other side, and that's what I'm describing. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, I think if you actually did a comparison, wouldn't you have just as many square feet per lot?
So they're not
Per-
individual lots. So
No, I
think-
know. I meant,
Per
like, if you
acre.
took per
That's
acre,
correct. Yes.
you would have about the same square footages. So the use of property is what I'm getting at. It's
Right,
not,
I understand.
I understand there's more units. I'm just saying size. Isn't it about the same?
So I think what you're looking at, he would have 2 units that would equal one of the
One
homes.
house.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So the density part of it, I get that you might theoretically have more people, but structure-wise, it's about the same.
Correct.
Okay. I was just getting that straight in my head because everybody's talking about, 8 units per and 6 units per. I just know that what backs up to our property, those are big structures. And they're basically equivalent to 3 stories because of the slab sizes.
Right, so those are Esperanza.
That's
Yes, ma'am.
Esperanza, yeah. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
I'll respond to that. I believe I live directly behind you. And I can give you the square footage of our home.
Are
The
y'all at
separation between her residence and mine, I would venture to guess, is over 150 yards, if not greater. I can't see her house from mine. She can't see mine from hers. But I think the greatest concern that we have is the transitory nature of rental properties. I'm not from Bernie. I didn't grow up here. I never owned land, right? I've done nothing but serve this country since I was 18 years old.
Thank you.
Everything I have, I've invested in this house at Esperanza. Like many of my neighbors. I'm a federal agent. I run a multi-agency task force that focuses on gangs and violent crime. I can tell you the majority of my time is spent at rental properties. We have special tools to deal with apartment doors because they have privacy locks. My point is I've lived here for about 4 years now. Not once have I seen somebody throw a piece of trash out the window, or not take care of their yard, or not take ownership in this community. I'm passionate about that, and this is where we'll retire. My plan is to continue to be a part of this community. I spend about 40 minutes every day commuting to San Antonio where my work is because I don't want to have to live in an area that I have to work. And those are just hard facts. So as we talk about short-term leases and the transitory nature of rental property and things like that, my fear would be that we'll lose more of that sense of community. When we talk about the difference in 10 feet, 30 feet, 10 yards, from a house that's valued at $700,000 or $800,000 to a house that's, or a rental property, if you can show me another example of that, where that's worked here in the city of Bernie or the county, I would love to see it. I would. I would not have purchased and built my home if I knew that that was going to be the situation. And when we talk about square footage, to answer your question, ma'am, all of my neighbors, the houses that are depicted on the backside of El Cielo, are all here today. That home where you came out, you engaged with one of my neighbors and talked to him that afternoon. You know, you even admit in your rendition here with the engineer that That's greater than the 10 feet separation or 10 yards separation. So my concern is I don't think there's anybody that thinks that this is a good idea. And I respect growth. I respect the right to be able to sell your property. I respect everybody's right to do that. I truly do. Greatest country on this planet because of that, because we have the freedom to do those things. But I just ask the zoning commission, the city council, the county commissioners, whoever it is we need to talk to just please reconsider allowing leases and short-term leases. I see these properties put up all over San Antonio and Austin. I work 2/3 of the state of Texas, from the border to Houston all the way up to Waco. And I can tell you that because of the profit, these are great projects, these are great things, and then within 2 to 3 years, they maximize that potential, they turn and they sell these things, and then you talk about housing that becomes affordable housing, right? And in turn, comes under the receivership of the government, where you're getting assisted housing, assisted living, all those things. I don't want to see that here in Bernie. I don't want to see, whatever it's Section 8 or whatever it is. Just don't want to see that.
Well, neither do we. And I appreciate your service. Thank you very much.
So
Suzanne?
I'd like to speak about the demographic. So the demographic that we're seeing nationally in this product versus a traditional multifamily project is different. These are renters by choice. These are millennials that are emerging into the workforce that like the idea of renting. They don't want to own a home necessarily. They're, again, renters by choice. They also are saving up for a down payment on a home for their first home. These are also couples looking to downsize. And then we also see that these are grandparents that want to be next to the kids and grandkids. These are all options for people to kind of simplify their life and downsize. So this is a home. This is private yard, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. This is an opportunity to have an attached garage and have a simplified lifestyle. And we are seeing an enormous demand for that with young professionals. And that's kind of the demographic that lives in these types of homes. And that's regionally, that's statewide, that's what you see around the country. So that's a real shift in the renter, these renters by choice. People that could own a home, but they say, I don't want to.
The only thing I wanted to say and readdress was that I was not comparing their homes to the size of apartments or this community. I was asking about just size and density as far as how it took up acreage. And to give you a little background, these subdivisions did impact the people that own the land around 46. We now look at slabs in our backyards. And the ladies, and what?
Please don't shout out.
Excuse me?
You're going to make millions.
According to who? Is my land, is
Suzanne,
property for sale? No.
please don't shout from the audience.
Yes.
Disrespect.
And a little background, our family, our business, has been in this community 43 years operating. My average employee has been with me. The older men average 32 years in our employ. My younger plumbers average over 20. And as Laura can attest to, our business has given a great deal of money back into this community. So the community and its growth and how it grows is very important to us. I'm not taking the side of one versus the other. I just wanted to get my head around the size. And it's not about your house costing more than this house or, you know, because we also have growth going around us on a personal basis too. On all sides, Laura knows, we own commercial property that's affected by the growth. My residence is affected by the growth. So it was nothing intended. I just wanted to know, to get my head around the sizes.
Great. So, Jeremy, Do you want to open it up to questions now? Do you want to finish your presentation? Do you have too much? I mean, I think people are eager to make statements and be heard.
I personally would like him to finish his presentation.
There was a few other topics that were brought up. If I could address those.
Do y'all mind
from
just
the
waiting
residents.
just a second?
Just a few minutes.
Thank you so much.
Let's allow him to finish and not interrupt, and then we can pepper him with questions as long as he can handle it.
Let's not pepper him with
I like pepper.
ask questions.
So what this is intended to convey is really to speak through the traffic and to show and illustrate the portion of the right-of-way that we'd be dedicating and building a portion of the road there on our property, and then where it would go, right? So to the west is the frontage of the Champion Heights. And as that property gets developed, the rest of that road gets built. And to the east, as the Rittiman property gets developed, the future Thoroughfare Plan shows Herf Ranch Road extending north and connecting to the infrastructure that we would have put in place. With the goal and the idea being, as those three properties develop, you're able to get from light to light on that backer road, for lack of a... Has it been named yet?
The Backage Road.
The Backage
Winding
Road.
Woods.
Winding Woods.
Yes, sir. It started in Woods of Bernie and we'll come across.
So that's kind of the future plan. There was some confusion, I think, last meeting as it spoke to that. And then as, again, continued development would extend east. Taxes, we will be paying a lot in taxes. And the residents would be paying taxes by nature of living there because we're paying taxes. And so, you know, in terms of the load that it would place on the school district potentially, Class A luxury multifamily apartments, traditional apartments, have usually 3 bedrooms are where the families would move into, and they have anywhere from 15 to 30% 3 bedrooms. You get 2 to 3 to 4 or 5% of the residents have children that live there. Historically, the product that we've built over the years. What we're seeing in this type of rental product is that there are more children that live there, but it's really dependent upon how many 3 bedrooms that are provided. That's not a hard fact, but that's the trend. That's generally what you see. We're proposing to do 10% 3 bedrooms in our community. And I think the ratio, as a matter of fact, is 40% ones, 50% twos, and 10% threes. Bedrooms. And so with that, and the taxes that we pay, we're going to be paying a significantly, pretty large amount of taxes per child. Or it would take an inordinate amount of children to live in our community to place a burden as if I were to own a home, a $500,000 home in the city of Bernie. The taxes that I would pay if I had a few kids compared to what our community will pay will be quite a bit more. And so I just wanted to point out that we will be contributing, we will be investing and paying our taxes to the city. And then lastly, the use. Of the uses that could go there, we've done a lot of work in designing the aesthetics of this. I think this is probably the lowest impact use that could go on a property that fronts 46. Someone mentioned commercial. They'd like to see commercial there. So we ran some traffic impact analysis to see what restaurants, what does a sit-down restaurant generate on a 4-acre sit-down restaurant. Sit-down restaurant generates about 1,683 trips a day. Well, if we place 2 of those on the frontage, that's 3,300 trips a day. And then you've got all the land in the back that would also need to be developed, another 15 acres or so that would be developed with some use. Maybe it's single family, maybe it's another use. So more than 2x the amount of load that our community on 27 acres would put onto the highway. The numbers from Esperanza, this was per the current, not the future build out, but it's 3,276 trips a day. Champion Heights, 1,964 trips a day. Our projected use is 1,610 trips per day. And a car dealership, as an example of something that could go on the frontage there, it's a low water use, and I was considering if something, not that it's pertinent to place it there, but what's the equivalent types of trips for a product like that? And it is, and they take 8 to 10 acres, about 1,683 trips. So I say that just to point out that development will go on this property at some point. We have one of the lowest trip counts that you could do for a non-low density single family type of 2 to 3 units to the acre type of use. So
Great. Are you ready to
I
open it
think
up to
hopefully that
questions?
addressed most of the points that were brought up, and happy to answer any questions or listen for.
Don't rush the microphone. If you
First,
just-
I want to apologize. My point was, I hear a lot of burning landowners complaining about all this development, but then they go sell their land for like $10 million and cash out. So, I don't know. It's kind of hard to feel sorry sometimes.
Understood.
Hello, I'm Heather Goodrich. I'm married to the federal agent in the red shirt. So we do live behind the property. We are not directly affected, but it could directly affect our view. But I just want to, has Ombre done a third-party feasibility study on the feasibility of this project? Because you haven't done one of these projects before.
Is the project type feasible?
Is it feasible? And is Ombre, are you doing this project with cash equity, or will you be getting financing from a bank to do your construction project?
That's correct. We'll be using a bank, and this is privately
And
funded.
it is. And I just think it's very important for Laura, Jeremy's done a great job doing his presentation, and for all the residents to understand, there is a master plan for the community, and that's understood. What we think is best is a commercial. We would all love to have somewhere to get other than pizza and burgers when we get off work. We would like to have a place to shop. There are other uses that would be a better use. We understand property rights, and that the residents, obviously, or the owners of the property, have the right to sell their property, and that shouldn't always be impeded. But everyone should understand that this is a permanent structure. It is really like duplexes, as townhomes. It's going to deteriorate over years. Typically, I finance investors, and I disagree. I would rather see, and I look at these on a daily basis, developers who they build single-family residences, they'll rent a few of them, they keep them up, they've got long-term tenants. You're not going to have that with this product. Millennials, there's no industry here. I'm very qualified with 25 years of banking experience, and it was hard for me to find a job. I worked in New York City for GE Capital. I worked on $30 million to $2 billion deals. I couldn't even find a job. So it's very hard to imagine what type of person is going to want to pay up to $3,000 per rent when that's a lot more expensive than my mortgage and property taxes. Okay, but what we need to remember is that Ombre is this transaction benefits one person. It's going to be the seller, a one-time sale, one-time cash gain for the seller. We'll have a developer who will come in, and they're going to build the structure, okay? That structure will change ownership. And with ownership, you'll have different upkeep. You're going to have different... The objective for these projects is to get it built, stay on budget, do it on time, convert that construction financing into permanent financing. They have to pay the debt back. So depending on their portfolio shift, the economy, if they can't lease it up and get a full rent roll, they want to get it stabilized up to 80% occupancy or more. They've got to pay that mortgage. Just like us, we got to go to work and pay the mortgage. So they've got to pay the mortgage and then get some excess cash flow back to the investors, back to the family. I come from a family of commercial developers out of Nashville, Tennessee. My grandfather built my college university's library, the courthouse, the armory, and I've watched family businesses, and I've seen them liquidate and deteriorate, okay? Everyone needs to understand that this is a permanent structure. I'm going to say it for the third time. It's a permanent structure. It will change hands, and the use will change over time. And it's not improbable that you could later have Section 8 housing. If you can't get it rented, the feasibility study wasn't correct, the traffic wasn't correct, you can't get anybody to rent it, you're going to have to pay the mortgage, okay? Or you're going to be sitting there with a foreclosed property in the middle of Bernie. And my neighbors that will be directly affected and back right up, they paid $1 million for their home. They have an autistic child. They put in a pool, okay? So the enjoyment, they gave up a large property in Cordillera. And all of a sudden, they're going to back up, and their son's going to get agitated because he's going to back up against apartments. And I'll tell you another thing. For 2 days now that I saw trash, what was approved, the multifamily behind Smoky Mo's, the ranch at Cibolo Creek, has had trash piled up at their entrance to this height. 50-plus bags. I took a picture today. 50-plus bags. Would you want that 20 feet from your property? Would you want that anywhere near your property? Rodents, ants. And that's because that was zoned, and once it's zoned and it's managed by the property, the city has no control over that. The residents have no control. We're stuck with it. They decide that they don't want to keep the property and they sell it. You just sold the gate. Profitable property by the Dallas Cowboys. You know, why did Ombre? See, the portfolio will shift. Cash needs of Ombre will change. This is not a decision to be made based on Ombre alone. It's, do we want this structure? Is it the right structure for Bernie? And I say that passionately, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. You're doing a great job. And you're just trying to do your job. And we understand that. And we understand the Riddymans, too, that they want to do a good job. Everybody just wants the best thing for Bernie. And so I hope that...
We do, too. And I just disagree with your vision. Embry is very passionate about what we do. We wouldn't be in business 47 years and managed through 7 recessions and kept the long-term relationships that we have with our bankers, with the institutional investors, if we didn't do what was right all the time. So I can speak to the fact that Embry will continue to make. We feel very passionate about this product type for Bernie is exactly right. It's exactly what Bernie needs. There is no product like this. There's no way for someone that wants to own a home that can't afford the median income of a home is continued to rise over the last few years, as everyone knows, which is great if you're a property owner. It's tough if you're getting new into the market and to purchase. And this is a touchdown point for people to be able to get a footprint in Bernie that want to live here that otherwise couldn't.
But that's an assumption. All projects are based on projections and assumptions. And I'm going to tell you right now, the traffic point, today, I took a picture of that too. I work at the bank where this thoroughfare is going to wrap around and come out of the light at Champion High School. Every day I leave that property about 4 times. I have to fight to not run over children. Today, every day, they jaywalk. Okay, and if you're not paying attention, you're looking at your phone, or your millennials actually show up, they decide to have a happy hour at 3 o'clock at Inferno's and get a little tanked and don't see in the blind spot that there's a child there. Sober as a judge, it's very easy to almost run over someone. The traffic, the plan, the thoroughfare, it's not sufficient and it's not well thought out. And I tell you that because I've lived in New York City for 6 years, South America and Bogota, Colombia, 9 million population, same as New York. It's so bad over there for traffic that they do a thing called pico y placa. So you have a license plate where you can only drive on certain days. So there are ways to think things out better. Your product may be fabulous. I just don't think it's fabulous for the location where you're trying to put it. Maybe somewhere else on a highway, on I-10, somewhere else in Bernie. But in between 3 subdivisions, actually 5. So we're going to have 5 subdivisions. So you're wanting to cram 220 to 400 plus cars and wrap them around the bank, come out where you've already got high traffic with the children. The school's not going anywhere. Okay? And also, you're going to be bottlenecked from Herf Ranch and the other subdivision, the ranches. Just for me to get out of Esperanza and to the bank in the morning, if I hit traffic, if I hit school, if I hit any hiccup, you're just stuck. There's nowhere to go. So I understand data projections, but I live it every day, and everybody in this room lives it every day. And while it looks good and it may seem like a wonderful thing, it's not what the community wants, not at that spot. We're not saying we don't want Ombre to come and do a project. It's just that spot is not the best spot, and it's not the best use.
So we do bring up traffic. I just want to make sure everybody in this room is following. We're going to be working on our transportation plan again this year.
Yeah.
So please be paying attention and come with your feedback. I think everybody recognizes traffic specifically on this side is heavily impacted.
The children, they don't have the capacity.
Well,
to
and the
think.
school at that location, I think, has really impacted that area. So we have plans in place. We get the roads with development. So it lags behind, and unfortunately, the residences pay the price. I think everybody agrees with you as far as traffic. They would build a section of the road that we need, so that's always helpful. But anybody that goes there is going to have to build that section. So just to be clear, but I appreciate your comments.
No, and thank you, Lauren, Sarah, and Jeremy. And I didn't get your name.
Ashley.
But we're all trying to do our jobs.
No.
And we understand. And some of us are just a little bit more passionate right now because this
That's
directly
okay.
impacts our families.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
My name is Denise Powers. I'm from 126 Cordova in Esperanza. And, the way that things are being addressed here tonight sound like this is already a done deal.
No, ma'am. It is not. This is part of the public process.
I understand that, ma'am. I really do.
Right.
But you seem to favor this project quite a bit in the way that you're speaking. And that's okay. Whatever. But I have to point out that I have left a city recently where a major Embry development, 3 blocks from my family home in San Antonio, 30 years, went up with an over 216 unit project, mixed use, 2 blocks from my family home on Broadway, which only intensified the density of that area. I came to Bernie for a less dense lifestyle. In all honesty, Embry is a development company. I agree with the previous speaker. Why is a development company in the rental business, in the housing rental business? They will make their money and they will turn it over. And once it's turned over, it will not have the same oversight that Embry proposes to offer the project. And so the turnover of the project is ultimately a problem. And I have to say that the placement of this, 3 major schools, already a thoroughfare that's overtaxed, and hundreds more houses yet to be developed in Esperanza alone, which is ridiculous, and I'm an Esperanza resident. It's too much. I just don't think that this project is appropriate for that space at this time. I think commercial might be better, who knows? But the long-range outlook for this particular project does not look good. It will be turned over. They're not in the rental business, ultimately. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. I'm Andrea Resendez, and I am a resident of Champion Heights. So last time we were here and we were discussing the same proposal, you had addressed some of the questions that myself and other neighbors had asked. So I have a few more questions. So before I start asking those questions, I want to make it clear, we understand something is going to get built here, right? We get it.
Right.
Finding that happy medium I think is going to be key here in working with each other. So we do appreciate opening this up to the community, allowing us the opportunity to speak. I do understand the need for developing Bernie, providing that lower income and lower middle class an opportunity to attend better schools, live in a safer neighborhood. I come from poverty, okay? I grew up with a rotted wooden spoon on food stamps. At the age of 17, I left for the Marine Corps. I am 3 years away from retirement. I have done everything I possibly could to stop that cycle of poverty. So when I tell you I understand the need to provide these other people who don't have that opportunity to get ahead of it, I understand, okay? But I think we need to also take into consideration of balancing providing individuals this opportunity as well as not overcrowding. Correct me if I'm wrong, are we still sitting at 228 units? 226?
Correct.
Okay. So my concern, and this is for you all and also for the council, I would really like to see P&Z and the council take into consideration prior to making any decisions. Number one, what is going to be the impact of adding another 600 plus kids to our school district? Now we're talking, we have school of choice, but they're going to automatically be zoned for Bernie Middle North and Bernie High School. What is going to be the impact? I would like to hear from the superintendent on that. I would like to hear from transportation. I would like to hear from the utilities to determine what is going to be the impact on the infrastructure, because they are requesting to be annexed into the city. I would like to hear from the sheriff, fire department. What is going to be the impact on our emergency services by adding, another 226 homes? You figure an average family home is going to be 3 to 5 people per unit. What is going to be the impact on that? What is the requirement on them to maintain this property? Does P&Z or the city have a requirement that they maintain this property for X number of months or years? Do you know that off the top of your head?
No, so the answer to that, and I thank you, Jeremy, for being honest. I mean, you could have said that you would own it forever and then change your mind later. So the law doesn't allow us to require whether you're a homeowner or a renter. So whether you keep property or sell property, that's not we have no authority over that.
Okay. So with that being said, I lived a large bulk of my time in Louisiana, filled with refineries. The benefit of having those refineries in our parishes was that they were required, and new developers were required to donate money or pay extra fees every year towards our emergency services, our schools, and our infrastructure. Does the city of Bernie have that?
So they're not extra fees. They are taxes, though. I mean, that's how... And I will tell you, the school district just went through a planning scenario where they looked at all the new development that they were aware of. At the time, we weren't aware of this one, so it's not in their plan. But I do believe that they, and I actually have it upstairs, they have in their plan anticipated growth. So they do factor that in. But you've got existing schools, so you've got to put other students in other areas different.
Right.
So that's how they break out their districts. So they just went through that planning process just recently. I think it's all on their website if you want to take a look at what their actual disbursement looks like.
Yes, I have listened to the meetings and understand that this year they've seen the largest growth that they have ever seen, which is concerning with the P&Z board, allowing so many of these multifamily units, because just last night, there was the request off of Old San Antonio Road in Herf There's another, all this development down near Toyota dealership. It's popping up everywhere. And so that is the concern, is has the board considered implementing extra taxes on these? Because we're talking about whoever owns it, doesn't matter. We're talking about 226 units that are not going to be tax-paying citizens. So will they be getting any exemptions? And then if they sell to a developer that will later on request subsidized housing, those do rate exemptions at the federal, state, and local level. So what does P&Z have in place in order to prevent this property from 10 years down the road becoming a subsidized unit in order to be a tax benefit to the owner?
Well, there is nothing in place that would keep anybody from, if that was a necessity, anybody from doing that. So, I get caught up on words sometimes. So P&Z doesn't oversee that. I mean, they do look at development, and they consider density in certain areas and traffic impact, all of that stuff, when they're looking at the different developments. So those are the things that they consider. Council really kind of oversees the rest of that as far as how, impact fees and so forth. So they'd still have to pay impact fees. There's been questions about the utilities. We have water for 35,000 people right now. We're getting close to 20 now. We have a water committee that's studying, where's the next water going to come from? And so that is of interest to us, and we know it's a concern to the community, but we're planning for that. But right now we're fine in regard to this, and their impact on the infrastructure will be paid through impact fees.
Now, do we have to allow them to annex? Like, why can we not allow?
We don't have to allow it. I mean, that certainly is a choice that council makes. I think it's been anticipated. Like I said, I've gone through a number of comprehensive plans. We'd always anticipated, even though, and I think Ms. Ritteman would attest that years ago it was we're never going to do anything with our property. But I've heard that so many times now.
Yeah, I know she had concern on the last bond meeting in October over the single utility pole on the property. So
sure, right. You listened. Good for you.
I did. So I pay a little bit of attention.
You
just
do.
A wee bit.
Good. I can tell.
But those are our concerns.
Sure, I understand.
It's not just this development, but this times by all of the other developments that the board and the council are approving that are going to impact all of those critical elements of our city and overload it. Because at the end of the day, his 226 unit development, they're not tax-paying citizens. We are. So we are the ones that are going to foot the bill for all of these developments that are getting approved. And I'm telling you this, the property taxes average here, I am a 90% disabled veteran, and I still pay over $6,000 a year on my property taxes. That is absolutely absurd for me to pay that much, and to think that 226 families just in that one development is going to move in, and I, as a disabled veteran, am footing the bill for all of these people.
Well, keep in mind, Jeremy, you look like you're ready to speak to it. I'll let you. They still have to pay property taxes. Nobody gets out of that.
Do you rate any exemptions?
For what?
Any property tax exemptions?
No. We're going to be paying all the property taxes that you would pay if you lived in the city of Boerne.
Okay.
And we'll pay the full rate. So, question, 600 children, you came up that calculation
That's averaging
by
about 2 to 3 kids per household.
per house. Okay. And so that is not the case for this product type nationally. We can say 600, but in reality, it's going to be a fraction of that.
Real quick.
And that's because of the history of the product type that's been built who lives there. We do an extensive study. We paid a lot of money by the experts that solely focus on this to give us the demographics and understand exactly who's living there and design to that. And so potentially the 3 bedrooms could. Sure, that we do have a limit of 2 people per bedroom. That's an absolute max. So the most anybody could live in a 2-bedroom is 2 people. So you couldn't have a family of 5 living there, period.
But correct me if I'm...
You could have 4 people. Sorry, yes. A 1-bedroom home, you could have 2 people living there.
That's HUD
So
requirements. So
all that to say is the reality is it won't be 600 children, and we will be paying our fair share of taxes. That is passed along to the resident by the nature of we have to, run a business, and so they do pay. They don't directly write a check to the city, but we do are responsible for paying taxes just like
your assessment is based on the other Embry properties. This prototype, how many do you have nationwide of this prototype?
So we're launching this platform. This will be our 3rd community. We start our first one in February in Green.
Mm-hmm. So this will be...
Fort Worth will be number 2.
This will be 4.
And this would be number 3.
Okay.
And I think the numbers he's quoting to you really, he talked about 10% of them are going to be 3 bedrooms, so that's where you're likely to have the children. So I think that's
that's where the children would live. And someone spoke to the point that the rent here might be more than what they pay in a mortgage and property taxes combined. So my question would be, why would a family live here if they could purchase a home and pay less in taxes, less in mortgage, et cetera? So, the argument, you just thinking it through, we don't see a lot of families and children moving into this product type.
Well, here's my thing. The stats that you put out there, I'm trying to gauge where you're pulling your analysis from. So right now, that is based off of 3 developments nationwide. Correct?
No, that's not correct. So we pay for a market study to analyze and understand what is this product type. Mm-hmm. And so they look at hundreds of communities that are currently in place in Texas of this design, a very similar design, of these kind of 900 to 950, 1,000 square foot horizontal apartments, single family for rent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different terms.
Right.
So using those statistics and the large pool that it's pulled from, you can see on average the number of children, or that's
but there were
the type
other
of person that
stats
lives
that
there.
You had thrown out with regards to the length that your residents generally stay. So
that's right.
At the last meeting, you said 9 to 12 months, and that's what I'm trying to get at is that when you're talking about Embry's residents, you're basing that off of 3 nationwide developments so far up until this point. So my concern, again, and this is with the board, is approving this based on 3 developments nationwide that, for Embry to say that their residents stay X number of months when you have very limited data to base that analysis off of.
I think he's not talking about Embry.
So let me clarify. So traditional multifamily, what's across the street on the south side, right, of 46. That is what I'm calling a traditional multifamily property. They tend to, and in our knowledge, what we property manage, what we see, also what the national trends are 9 to 12 months.
Okay,
and
so these are national trends.
Because of it's a commodity, an apartment here, an apartment there, well, that one's less expensive. It's designed the same. It has the same amenities. I'm going to go move over there because they're running a special, right? And so people begin to 9 to 12 months is kind of the average.
Okay.
What we're seeing for this particular product type that we want to place here, again, nationally, it's been around for about 5 years, 4 to 5 years. They're seeing 2 to 4 years is the average that people live in that home. Now, regardless if the lease is a 9-month, a 12-month, or a 15-month lease, they're staying, they're renewing, they're not moving out, and
I
so
hear
they're
you.
less transient. That's
Yeah.
so. Hopefully that clarified.
No, that
difference.
clarified a lot, and I just wanted to make sure that we as a community understand that the statistics that you're throwing out here, we understand where that data is coming from, right? Because there's a big difference when somebody starts throwing out stats and you don't know where that information came from. A study in the pool where that data is pulled from is significantly different when you say our residents compared to, well, the national average on this similar prototype. So there is a big difference in the messaging, and I would ask for more clear information when you do provide us statistical data on trends. So I would ask that. The other thing I will ask for is a clear image of all of the maps that you presented in your PowerPoint presentation tonight. Even with me standing in front of the TV, I could not make out any numbers or words on that. So if we can please get that, I would appreciate that.
Jeremy, will we be able to share this online? So
think
it'll
if-
be online
So-
under the bond meeting.
Yeah, if
Be
we
able to
can
zoom
get
in
it.
and see that.
Yeah, as
I
long
think
as the.
it's clear on the
Okay.
PowerPoint.
All right. And then what was the height on the lights that you were talking about putting in?
So the pole height is going to vary between 12 to 15 feet on average.
Is it possible to get that lower?
So we would just need more of them. And so you're balancing the difference between what's appropriate for the use. If you're driving down the street and you want it illuminated, if it's too low to the ground, it doesn't do its job. And so there's kind of a balance there. So instead of 30-foot standards and doing a lot less of them, bring it down to do 12 to 15 foot and make it more residential in feel.
So just an information, based on the city regulation, the poles on the property boundary need to be 10, and the ones inside the like at least, I think, 10 or 20 feet from the property boundary could be up to 20. And our regulation does have zero light trespassing, so they're not allowed to illuminate anything beyond their property line. We do have dark sky regulation. It's
Well, I understand the lights they have chosen are in compliance with the city's policies. So I do appreciate that, but if it is possible to keep them as low as possible within the policy, that would be appreciated, right? And this is, again, trying to find that happy medium. The other concern, the road on the map entering the neighborhood, will there be a gate at that entrance?
yes.
Okay. Will there be private security?
We generally don't have 24/7 security on property.
Okay.
We generally do not.
Okay. And then with regards to sidewalks, are there going to be sidewalks going all the way out to Champion Boulevard? Because right now on Champion Boulevard,
the
there's
west?
no sidewalks.
Right.
To the
From
west?
east to west, yes.
So their property line ends before Champion Heights? So when Champion
Right.
Heights develops that front area there, they'll have to put in sidewalks along the street.
Well, on that thoroughfare road?
The
that
north-south?
cuts across? Mm-hmm.
This
That one.
middle
This
right
one-
of way, this future right of way?
Sidewalks will be required.
Okay.
It will just stop at the boundary before it gets to the Champion Heights, the commercial section of development over there. Because then whoever develops that will have to do exactly what they're doing.
Okay.
So
got
it will happen eventually. There will be
Okay.
sidewalks.
I appreciate that. And then the final recommendation request that I do have is that the crime stats get pulled from the actual source, from the Bernie PD, from Kendall County. In my work history, the GIS system is all reliant upon the PD entering that data and entering it correctly. So I did take a look at the same map that you looked at, and I noticed it, right? But it all depends on the analysts putting in that information, because if they put the wrong grid coordinates in there, it's going to map that incident incorrectly. So after looking at that crime map, I have very low confidence in the county sheriff's map. I really, truly do. And this is also based on my history of working this. I mean, that's a part of my job. So if we can please get an actual statistical data from the Boerne PD, from the county PD on that, that would definitely be appreciated.
Sure. We have that.
We have that information?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, if we can share that data, and I would request that that data go back at least 3 years, because if we go back 6 months to 12 months, especially with the COVID, that's not going to reflect an accurate reflection of what the norm is.
So are you interested more in areas of crime or product types like this and crime occurring?
The high density or multifamily communities within the city limits.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So other than that, I have nothing else. I'm not going to pound you anymore. I do appreciate your time. And again, like, I'm not trying to,
Appreciate the feedback.
Yes, just transparency and more clear, information.
Can you just give me your email, or can you send me an email?
I can come over right now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Aaron, just share. Oh, you got it on the card.
Well, let me just say that I'm not going to be as technical as this fine Marine that went ahead of me, but I too served my country for 39 years, 25 years as an active duty Marine.
Do you mind giving your name?
My name is Larry Kowalczyk. I live next
Thank
to
you.
Denise. Next door, I'm her neighbor at 124 Cordova in Esperanza. My wife and I just moved here 3 years from California. We escaped, so we know, according to Larry's barbershop, I still have to wait 3 more years to vote. But one of the things that we're not really talking about here, and I think is really important, is quality of life. I mean, a lot of people aren't talking quality of life. I'm not picking on anyone specifically, but my wife and I moved in an area in California called Murrieta, very similar to Boerne. It's off Interstate 15, new community, about 15,000 people. And we were essentially, it's sort of like deja vu for us, because we're being made the same sorts of promises. Don't worry, the city planner's got this under control. We've got a master plan. We've got all these things. And what we realized after a number of years of living there, what used to take us 5 minutes to get somewhere ended up taking us 35 minutes, because the glut just continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. And I know growth is good, but uncontrolled growth is not good. And what you have is population glut. And one of the reasons we moved from the Carlsbad Vista, the conglomerate, is almost like living in New Braunfels in those areas. We moved out away from it, but it followed us. And, I know everybody has good intentions initially, but obviously Seaward is a large influx now into Texas. Texas and Florida are places to live, and understand that growth is going to be critical. But if we're not controlling that growth and we're not controlling it wisely, we're going to run into a similar situation. Just like the federal agent was here before, my wife and I plan to make Texas our retirement home. We bought in Esperanza because we want a nice, quiet place. I'm legally blind. I'm totally disabled, 100%. I can see, but I don't see very well. So I have to rely on my wife to drive me around everywhere. I call her Magellan because we get lost a lot. But I'm very concerned as I saw Highway 24. We were here when the road building was going on, and we realized the traffic. We knew it was going to be bad, but we said, when it's finished, it's going to be great. It's going to be great when they get all these lanes finished. And what I soon realized is when you go out on there, 24.
46.
Or 46.
Yes, sir. That's all right.
46. It seems as bad as it was when they were doing the construction. So I start looking at the 200 and some units on this development and the 500 additional units that Esperanza is looking to expand for its over 55 community. I'm going, where are all these people going to go? How is the infrastructure going to be able to support all of this growth on that area? And like others, I said, is there other areas in Bernie that could be looked at other than, it's like, I'm getting the impression that everything's being pushed into this Highway 46 corridor, and it's I don't know, there's more kids in that area. You know, we have the elementary school in Esperanza, and I'm just going, you know, again, I'm not completely familiar with Bernie, but I was just maybe thinking maybe another site might be more appropriate. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Again, my name is Guy Atherton. I'm in 102 Firefly Court in Champion Heights. Obviously, we have questions for you. My concerns and a lot of my opposition to this project is because I feel that there hasn't been enough planning, frankly, or it's changed so dramatically over the last years that this is now obsolete. The one question that I had that Andrea asked was the gate. So those dark black marks on that road of the future right-of-way, that is a gate?
No, sir.
Okay.
Those are arrows, I think, pointing to maybe the right-of-way width.
Okay.
So the gates would be, if I move my cursor, I don't know if y'all can see that, but the clubhouse is up towards the front,
Okay.
off the main entrance of 46, and the gates would be to the left and to the right as you enter into the community. Okay.
And then what about on the other side? Because obviously they're going to be going to the right and to the left off that main road. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that, as this road goes across north, you go across the right-of-way up into the community in this direction. Today, we don't plan on having gates along this right-of-way.
Okay.
They don't connect to anywhere today. Eventually, there may be a need for that and for gates. So, but we'll have connectivity throughout the site with sidewalks, and we'll be putting in the infrastructure that's required by the city.
My other question, and that was a major concern of mine when I saw that, goes back to the plan, the Thoroughfare Plan. Mm-hmm. And you show this street eventually going through, because this is what's being proposed to us, is that it's going to relieve the traffic. First of all, nobody lives within a 1 mile radius.
Some of the traffic.
Some of the traffic.
46 is heavily trafficked. It's not going to take people off of 46, but it might help stop some of the northern traffic from coming onto 46.
So right now, I'll address this first part. There is, from what I understand in watching the October meeting and then the end of November meeting, there is zero plan with a storage facility at this time. We have
Nothing
a road that
right
will go
now,
through
yes, sir.
that will go through the Ritterman property, and then we don't know. So that relief will not be for nobody knows how long. This, in my mind, he's done a great job. The property looks beautiful. I just think it's in the wrong place. And I strongly oppose it because I feel that the city, in my opinion, needs to reevaluate it and do a better job of truly understanding the impact to the traffic, the kids, as well as Champion Boulevard. This is considered to be a thoroughfare. That thoroughfare will go directly through our property. Currently, I invite anybody to come down Champion at the same time the garage truck is leaving and hit that little corner. It's not a very comfortable feeling. So also, I know a number of people had expressed in the morning or in the afternoon, mainly in the morning, when you were trying to get back into after I dropped my daughter off at Bernie High School. I come back on 46, try to make a left into our property and face the onslaught of cars, unfortunately mostly children, trying to make the left into Champion High School. Mm-hmm. They start beyond our entrance coming down that center lane. So they mentioned they did not want to do a traffic light there because this will be diverted to either direction. So let's assume at some point we have commercial there. We have this property. If that were to go in, which I don't agree with, you now have to make a right if you want to make a left onto 46 because you're going to be playing with your life. You already are trying to make a left across that with all this future traffic coming in. You have a single lane that at about 60 feet before the stoplight turns into a single left-hand turn lane and a single lane that goes straight or to the right. It gets backed up now. The Woods of Bernie residents are going to have lines waiting across that road as everybody else tries to get out if they're trying to make a left. Making a right, no problem. You go out, floor it, go for it. But I just think that they have strongly miscalculated the impact on traffic, and with no plan for the future road going up to Esperanza, I don't think we can move forward with this, to be honest with you. I think it really needs to be reevaluated. I just feel that, like many have said, this is a nice project, just not in that location. And I think it needs to be reevaluated at the risk of being chastised. I too escaped from California. I lived for 7 years in Murrieta, so I know exactly what he's talking about. I grew up in Rancho Bernardo. My mom taught there for 35 years in Poway. Poway is identical to what Bernie is now. Mm-hmm. It grew, good schools, everything you wanted, country living just outside the city.
Everybody wants to be
there. They
there.
managed it very well. I will give them that. The
Sure.
development of that area was not. And then I lived in Carlsbad, where he was talking about. I lived at the end of Bataquitos Lagoon. It doesn't get any more expensive than that. But my point is how we manage it, where we place these different properties. And I don't feel that having those apartments right there between Esperanza, between Champion Heights and Woods of Bernie, Woods of Bernie is the proper spot. That's my 2 cents.
So the property to the
appreciate it.
west, in front of Champion Heights, that is currently zoned or planned for
Commercial.
C2, they're trying to get C3.
commercial. So I'm showing you what commercial is going to do to 46. Just one sit-down restaurant. Equivalent number of vehicles. 2 restaurants, twice as many vehicles. It's not going to do really anything for the infrastructure. So our use is actually quite a bit better for the traffic situation in the interim until everything can be built out. So I would disagree in that the use in terms of the load on 46 is maybe the absolute best use that you could place there. Maybe, 2 to 3 units to the acre, again, would be less dense, of course. So I appreciate what you said, and I hear what you say. I just feel like that this is a housing need that is overlooked in Bernie today. I think it will be a huge success.
I don't disagree with that. I just don't agree with it where you want to put it. I don't disagree with that. I have nothing against you at all. I just think it needs to be reevaluated where. Most people here, you have the early birds that go out and do their shopping. In this area, you have a massive amount of children that attend these schools, whether it be the middle schools, Bernie High School, or Champion. Those kids are leaving all at the same time. They're like this. We all see them. You can talk to any of our neighbors that sit on Champion and watch the parents, too, unfortunately, curb check their tires all the way down Champion Boulevard because, 1, it's so narrow, and 2, they should be paying attention. There needs to be something done. I hear a lot of people talk about this thoroughfare with zero, and nobody addresses what they are going to do with Champion Boulevard and trying to funnel them back onto Woods of Bernie over there with Charger Boulevard. I keep referring to it as Woods of Bernie. Is not a proper solution, and we have no solution. We don't know, and that's not your fault, but we have no solution to the access to Esperanza, and I'm sure they won't like it. But I just think you have people that reside there. They're coming and going guaranteed every day. You will have days on commercial where people are closed. They're coming, they're going in and out, and it stays out there.
I appreciate your comments. I don't know. We're never going to be able to address traffic issues in this conversation. I would invite everybody, though, to look at our thoroughfare plan. You're asking about what's going to happen at Champion Heights, where these roads go, where are the connections. Understand those roads get built with development, not on taxpayer dollars, but development pays for it. Unfortunately, it's very painful out there right now. I understand it. I, thank goodness, don't have to come from that direction, but I know plenty of people that work here that do, and I hear about it every day. So I don't disagree with you at all with regard to the traffic and so forth. I want to hear comments. We've got a couple other gentlemen, and I don't know if anybody wants to say anything, but they're going to cut off our recording here shortly, and I want to make sure. So understand that your comments will be heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission because they're going to see the recording, and City Council as well watches this. This will be made available on our website. So if you want to go back, you want to look at the PowerPoint, any of that, you're welcome to do so. It'll be on our website. But I wanted to hear from these gentlemen first before we get cut off tonight.
Very briefly, I'm Anthony von Fraunhofer. I live in Champion Heights. I'm a scientist. In fact, I'm an emeritus professor from the University of Maryland. Throughout my career, I have evaluated numerous proposals and critiqued them. And one of the things that I always addressed is who benefits. I can see the benefit to the developers. I can see the benefit to short-term residents. They're going to have the benefit of excellent schools, very nice amenities of the city, but I do not, repeat, do not see any benefit to the residents, the permanent residents of Bernie. The situation, thank you. The situation on 46 is abominable. Another 226 residences, 400 cars, ranches at Creekside, Esperanza is still being developed. Just how big a funnel are we building? It looks to me as though we're getting a bigger and bigger funnel and a tiny little exit spout. The reason I brought up being a scientist is not that I'm particularly smart. In fact, talk to my wife and she'd probably agree with that. But the thing is, you do not embark upon a project without knowing what the ramifications are. You don't fund splitting the atom, for example, without making sure you know what the sequelae are. And what's bothering me about this proposal is I don't see the residents of Bernie benefiting, and there seems to be very inadequate planning of what is going to happen when it's all built. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
David Penny with the Woods of Bernie. Just to bring up a couple of points. One, I mean, $3,000 a month for rent. I don't know anybody that can spend $3,000 a month in rent and then be able to afford to put back money to buy a house later on in life. I mean, please, if anybody could do that, please stand up, because I couldn't. That's more expensive than some of our mortgages. So, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not an economist. I'm no mathematical wizard, but it doesn't make sense.
Where did you get $3,000 a month?
Well, I mean, y'all have said throughout the last meeting and this meeting that it's upscale housing, along with the fact we know that in Bernie, everything's more expensive. Even talked about it tonight. It's more expensive. So if an average apartment in San Antonio, one bedroom, is $1,000 to $1,500 a month, we're looking at $2,000 or over $2,000 a month for one of these units in probably a one bedroom, maybe $1,750, somewhere around there. For a two bedroom and a three bedroom, you're going to be looking at $2,000 to $3,000 a month, any way you cut it, to be able to afford the taxes and everything else that y'all supposedly are going to have to pay. So
we're not as optimistic as you are today. But
okay, and
all that to say is we target, I mean, we'll move the way that the market predicates how it needs to lease. But today we see these anywhere from the smaller one-bedroom units. Like you mentioned, there's going to be a range of $1,600 to $2,400 a month for the larger three bedrooms or 1,300 square feet.
Right, so I'm pretty close on the numbers. I don't think I'm grossly over. And, you know, the other thing is that I think you're going to have a very hard time renting apartments at those rates in the city of Bernie, because along with that, the people that are going to be able to rent those units, they're going to be driving other places because, as somebody mentioned, there's not jobs here there's generally not jobs here. They're having to drive into San Antonio, which means more gas and all that kind of stuff. So the next thing I want to make a comment on is the gates. And you've got the one set of gates at this time that you're going to be at the entrance, because the Champion Boulevard entrance and possible thoroughfare to Woods of Bernie, which I live in the Woods of Bernie, we don't want all of these cars coming in on the Woods of Bernie. As somebody mentioned, it can't handle it. And so you're not going to be able to put gates up to block that thoroughfare. And so you're going to have to put gates at the exit on the other side of before you cross over, Champion Boulevard or whatever the other road's going to be. So you're going to have to put in 4 or 5 more gates for the entrance and exit to keep it a gated community. And anybody that lives in a gated community knows that gates are a disaster, and they're always broken and everything else. And so I just think that overall, this project, if you want to put commercial, which I believe, like the other lady said, I believe the board has already kind of made their decision, and I think, I kind of feel like we're just speaking our minds for nothing, and it's just my opinion. But I believe if you want to do commercial, something like that, you talked about the idea that there's going to be just as many roads with restaurants or whatever, or just as many cars in and out with restaurants. Maybe so, but there won't be the drainage on our infrastructure as much, meaning water, electric, sewer, all that kind of stuff, because that's going to be the restaurants are open during the day and they close generally at night, and you don't have people taking showers and all that kind of stuff. So overall, I think commercial, something like that, this type of facility right next in between these 3 or 4 neighborhoods is just not a good idea for the community.
Thank you. We're going to close up with you tonight, sir.
Thank you. Brian McGinnis, 121 LCLO. I'm over in the front part of Esperanza. Thank you for your presentation tonight, and thank you for answering the questions. One point that I would like to, I'm going to just clarify, we'll disagree on this. Yes, the average loading on your property is going to be at about 8 units per acre, but per your own comments, 21 to 22 acres will contain housing, so the density of the housing in the non-open spaces is going to be higher than the 8 units per acre, so that'll impact just the visual aesthetic. But that's just a point of clarification for everybody. It's the on average, which is the standard, is still about 8 units per acre. I'm going to refer to City Council, the Planning and Zoning, and the Traffic Subcommittee, just as the City of Bernie, to make it a little bit easier. I would like if the City of Bernie could provide back to us the comparison of the taxes. I fully agree with you that you're not going to have children in every unit, therefore your school tax payment will be higher than your utilization of the schools. However, I'm not consistent. We've got to look it up that the school district is going to be able to handle the absorption of all the units planned, because my understanding is we're looking at a new high school in the near term, and middle school and elementary school, it is what it is, and we're at 3/4 manning at the elementary school in Esperanza right now with, as we've said, 500 more units coming in phase 3. But for the other taxes, which in this case we can just call it city taxes because it doesn't matter whether it's city or county taxes, what's the comparison between what I would pay in city tax if I lived in this city, and now my house is probably valuated at $750,000. My neighbor is in a $1 million house. They've got a pool and some other improvements over what I have, as compared to on that, probably I think it's the taxable rate per acre for where we're at in Esperanza, Woods of Bernie, and Champion Heights, versus what's the tax rate per acre going to be for this development overall, given what we're projecting to be the utilization of the resources. And I'm concerned about the access you have. You're at the mercy of where the land is and the road not being extended. but we've got Champion Heights Boulevard or Champion Way, and then we're going to have your entrance. And I happened to be off cycle from work today and came home when school let out, and it was backed up all the way from our favorite intersection at Old Number 9 all the way to Champion Boulevard. And now we're saying we're also going to have traffic going the other way as these parents are picking up the kids and turning back in to there. And we'll just agree to disagree on what the loading is. But yeah, it's not going to be 3 kids per every unit there. And now I'm going to address the folks here. This is the 2018 Bernie Master Plan. I'm certain the city would love all of us to pull this down and read it. It is online on the city webpage. I can tell you from having read this, and it's a quick read, it takes about 30 minutes, that what the city is proposing and doing is in this plan. Their future use map shows that this is going to be R4L, low family rental housing. So while we've said the city has made up their mind, directly the city council, and I don't know if the council votes on this under zoning and planning, that's a gray area right now, but the city has told us where they're going, and we disagree with that. So we need to work harder. This didn't impact us when this was drawn up. This was drawn up between 2016 to 2018. Over half of us didn't even own the house that we live in today when this was drawn up. So we've got to work harder. Yes, something's going to go there. But I think you've heard from the speakers tonight that we disagree that this is the right thing to go there. There are places in Bernie where this type of development could go. But the traffic subcommittee is already chasing the problems that existed as the result of the approval of Esperanza and the other subdevelopments. They haven't solved those problems. Phase 3 of Esperanza and this development and the continuation of another development are only going to exacerbate the problems on 46. And I see the city and the county not pulling together and doing anything to get the bypass around Bernie. We've talked about it. It's time that eminent domain is going to have to be exercised to relieve that traffic. And my final comment to the city. This document talked about a balance between development and quality of life. Everybody speaking tonight, and those who didn't speak, are telling the city our quality of life is going down. This is going to more adversely impact it. The city is failing to do its job as professed in this plan to maintain that balance. So I call upon the city to reevaluate. How fast should Bernie grow? We're going to grow, but how fast? Why is the city enabling this rapid growth when the infrastructure can't keep up? The federal funds are not flowing in fast enough. The state of Texas owns the 2 major thoroughfares that cut through Bernie, and they're not spending money on us. They just spent their money. We had our bite at the apple. It's going to be a while before we get a bite again. The road elevation plan, it's a plan. I haven't heard when it's going to be funded. So thank you very much for the opportunity to address the panel.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that we're being recorded, but go
That's
ahead.
fine. I know you said my husband was last speaker. I have a question separate for you all. Say it's approved. We give approval January, February timeframe. Can you tell us what your timeframe is for building, your estimated cost for the overall project? I'm coming in at 70, 80 million, I think. But I don't know. Can you tell me how much pain as far as time of, the roads and construction on the street in 46?
Yeah.
When you propose building these, because it took 2 years to get the road that everybody's complaining about tonight. Minimum 2, right?
For Champions Boulevard to get built?
No.
Yeah.
You're saying?
Yeah.
No,
Minimum
46. I think she's talking about 46.
Minimum 2 years disruption. We're talking disruption at a high-impact traffic point. We're talking how that impacts your time and operation, because cement trucks, construction vehicles, increased cost. I'm thinking it's $200 a square foot.
So I'll answer your questions on from a timing standpoint. So we would close next year, kind of targeting Q3 of next year.
So Q3 is July through September.
Correct. So that's the target today.
To close?
Let's say we were to purchase the land, close a construction loan, start work.
So you wouldn't start
would
until
be,
October?
Yeah, towards the latter part of next year. And
Okay.
we would be about 11 to 12 months before we had the clubhouse and the first set of units delivered.
Okay.
And begin lease up. And then the total duration for the construction project is about 22 months.
And just to be clear, they've got to go through annexation and zoning, which is what they're working on right now.
Which
Then they
is
have to
that first
plat
year.
it, and that takes a good, 6-8 months
So
all by
that-
itself.
We are literally talking, would any of that zoning and plating occur during that 8 months to close? Because you would petition to have.
Correct.
right?
So just assume about a year from now, a little bit less than a year from now, we would start construction.
Okay, so
And then all the due diligence that needs to occur between now and then. So part of that's zoning,
beginning to
plating,
end,
building permits.
beginning to end your projected time before you are accruing full revenue for your 228 units is 4 years? 3.5, 4 years?
2 years from the time we start. From today, I would say 3 years, and we would be complete with construction. 2 years from the time we start, and we would be complete.
So overall paying period is 2 years, but we're still talking a year before you really
Correct.
get into it.
That's correct.
Can you tell me, because I'm unaware, who owns the property directly behind you? Do you know?
To the north?
Yeah.
I'm trying,
A portion is owned by
The drive?
Champion Heights. Owns a portion of it.
They own a portion of it, but directly behind you, I want to say Dan Pedrati, who is a partner in the front of Champion Heights. I believe they still own it. Chris Christensen. I believe they still own that section back there, but I would have to check on the Kendall County to verify that.
So that area, does that run all the way up to
There's
the
another
high
property.
school, the road that could be connected
I
to
believe
the
there's
elementary
there's a
school?
property between them and where the school is.
We think there's 2 properties?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is that
I wish I had my
anything
laptop.
that you would expand on?
Oh, we don't own the property, so we couldn't
Not
expand
today.
on it. Yeah.
Okay.
There's floodplain back in there as well. The creek runs through
There's
there.
quite a bit of
I haven't
floodplain.
looked honestly to see what's developable
Okay.
of that property or not.
Okay, so I live on the 3rd house. My name's Kimberly McGinnis. I live at 121 Osceola. I'm sorry. I forgot to say that. I live on the 3rd house on that cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So kids being kids, what's the quickest way to get to school? I'm going to cut through there,
Are they cutting?
and
down
I'm
the
going to
creek?
move through there and optimize my walking capability so my parents don't have to drive me to school. So that would be a concern I would have
Well,
in
I
being
hear what
out.
you're saying. First of all, they'd have to cross the creek to get to this side of the property. Kids being kids, they may do that. I don't know. Our hope is, honestly, long-term, long-range. We have no plans for it now, so I can't promise anything. But they are dedicating land to the city that's along that creek that we would eventually put a trail in.
that would add and connect to the Esperanza Trail.
Eventually you want all the, what makes Bernie feel like a small town is the connectedness, the walkability of it. So yes,
But
trail systems that connect throughout.
I understand that, but the selling point in Esperanza, as salesman, no disrespect meant, but just salesman for the community that we purchased, was that those trails would be closed and our kids could walk to school without, being on the main road. So, the prospect that it's not just our community or our neighbors who we know using that bypass to connect up to the school, would lead us to have to want to broker really good relationships with your community and your tenants, if that were the case that the city were to do that.
Sure.
And I just don't know how we're going to do it if we're moving as quick as lightning to get everything done. For them, for us. I mean, it doesn't sound quick when you say 3 years, but it goes by really quick because we've lived here 5 years and it seems like a blink of an eye.
Right.
So, thank you for answering my questions and the questions I had. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. So it's no longer being recorded. Do you want to come talk to me after the meeting? Do you want to just come talk to me after the meeting? Or do you want to make a statement to the group that's here?
No, all I want to know is when is the city planning board anticipating having a decision so this not go through?
So we did have a public hearing in December, but there was no action taken, and they decided to withdraw so that they could have this meeting and talk to y'all. We are anticipated to move forward January 10th at the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It will again be another public hearing at which y'all can speak again if you so care to do. And I would anticipate that the Planning and Zoning Commission would vote on it. What they do is they make recommendation to City Council. Then it goes to City Council. Y'all have another opportunity to talk to Council, and they make the final decision.
Very good. Because I'm too 20 years Vietnam veteran, and I was born and raised in the town office. We've been gone for 53 years. Came back last year, a year and a half before I left around to acquire a small community. And it's changed in a year. The traffic flow, once they open the it's unreal. So, yes.
Yes, sir.
I think this is a good plan. The only thing that I've got against this plan is that looking at statistics back, there should be objective finding out what has apartment buildings or rental properties done after the first generation, like I bought out the first, because normally the first people rent are really scrutinized. But after that, or if things start going south, then they start going to land, easing their requirements, and that's when we start getting.
Yeah, and I've heard that a couple times tonight. I will tell you, as long as I've been here, I've never seen the rents go down in Bernie. So I think we're a very unique community in that way. So far, we've held true to that. I don't anticipate that to change at any point. We're bringing a lot of people from a lot of places, sir. Yes, sir. Right. Sure, absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time.
Did you say, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The January 10th meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
The